Alrighty, we're gonna get started. If you set yourself up universal setting, that's gear bar 2, stopper 2, half spring, foot bar down, put the straps either on the floor or on the hooks so that you can put the platform over the rails and it won't rub up against the bottom of it. All right, so we're gonna start back at the back of the reformer, kneeling on the platform. Yeah, so make sure you have enough space between the edge of the carriage and your legs so that you can be in a long diagonal and you don't have to shift back. So you're trying to be as far forward as possible with your pelvis as far forward over your knees as possible. And we're gonna try to move through our pelvis. So you're kneeling on that platform, your hands are against the shoulder rest, and instead of just leaning straight down into them, put your fingertips kind of in a blades against the front of it so it's less tempting to lean into it. Yeah, that's right. Bring your legs a little closer together so you're more underneath the pelvis. You're not in a really wide stance. Lengthen through the spine, bend your elbows and just send your heart and your chest forward into a little bit of thoracic cervical extension. Then lengthen back out to neutral. It's probably not that far away. And round the pelvis under to pull the femurs more to vertical, to pull the pelvis up on top of those vertical legs. And then from tail to head, lengthen back out. Bend the elbows, send the heart through. So mostly we're doing thoracic or upper back extension, neutral, and then lower back, pelvis, scooping, rounding, tail spinning underneath you. Exactly. Try not to initiate that curl of the pelvis from the upper back. Try to make it happen from the back of the pelvis, pulling down the back of the legs and extending through the upper back, lengthen to neutral, round the pelvis under, lengthen to neutral, extend, send the heart forward, lengthen to one long line, round your back, pull under. Twice more, lengthen, extending the spine and round. Think of pulling from the back of the arms, that back of the shoulder one more time. So you're not kind of overworking the front of the shoulder girdle, the anterior side. Once you get back to neutral, stay there, bring your hands down onto the carriage. You can adjust the spring tension if you need to, but stay neutral. Bend your elbows to pull the carriage back and return. So you'll kind of hinge at the hips if you need to be able to lower your torso a little bit so that you can bend your elbows and pull. Bend and return and bend the elbows. So if you keep the arms straight, then your torso might actually get higher than the pelvis. I want you to let your torso get a little lower so that you bend the elbows almost like a push-up. Bend your elbows to pull, lift. And you don't have to exaggerate how much the torso moves, but it'll kind of depend on each of our bodies. But there's a clear straightening and a clear bending. You might get all the way down until your shoulders almost bump the shoulder rests. Pull and return. So that I'd say the tendency for all of us is to bend the elbows some, keep them in that same shape, and then pull from the shoulder. I want you to go down with the torso, lift up, go down. So the elbows are continuously bending as the carriage is coming towards you, and yeah, continuously straightening as they go back forward. I just think it's harder. And it's just a different movement. It's more from the triceps and less from the lats. One more time. And then return. Bring your hands back up to the front of the shoulder rest. Take both of them to one side and just round your back to pull the carriage towards you. Lengthen back to neutral. Don't do the extension part, just round pelvis under. Trying to pull the pelvis towards vertical. If you need to back up or move your platform back at any point, you can. Most of us half spring will work for. If you ever needed more, of course you could add more, but this should feel like it's coming from the back of the pelvis and that lift of the front of the pelvis through the abdominals. 2 more. And last one. And then take the hands over to the other side and pulling the carriage towards you by spinning the pelvis underneath, back of the pelvis, coming towards the back of the legs, back of the knees, lengthen back to neutral each time. Good. And see if you can make it so the curl of the pelvis is really what moves the carriage, not the arms independently. Nice, Jessica. Last one. And return. Come off of there to the side. Turn around to face the other direction. Put your hands on that platform. If you need to move it closer to you, you can. Shift your weight forward a little bit so you have a little more openness through the front of the hips. Stay neutral. Just pull the carriage underneath you. You'll feel how in neutral is a lot easier. So we're gonna just prep here. Feeling the back of the shoulders, back of the arms stabilizing. Pulling towards you, return. Trying to think of pulling up on the low abs. As the carriage returns towards the stopper, don't let your back change. Good. And then round your back up towards the ceiling, cat back, pull the carriage under, keep it in a cat back, increase the cat back as the carriage returns to the stopper. Just 4 more like this. Should feel a little more difficult. And when you're done with this last one, sit back towards your heels, take the platform off of there. Just set it over your springs because we'll use it there in a moment. And we'll start with really light springs and decide if we make it heavier. But put one foot on the rail so you're in a lunge. Extend your back hip. To do that, I have to move my knee away from the shoulder rest. So I want the back hip, back thigh less vertical and more in a diagonal. And then just pull the carriage forward from that back leg, trying to pull up through the front of the pelvis. So you're just trying to get into that psoas hip flexor line. Move the front foot forward a little bit if you're hitting it right away. And then lunge forward so the front of your thigh touches the shoulder rest before you move. And then you're trying to pull yourself up to vertical. And the front of the thigh might come away from the shoulder rest as you're pulling. Reach your arms out to the side. And as you pull, rotate towards the front leg, return to the center. Rotate towards the front leg and return. Rotate. Try to be vertical, vertical, vertical. Yeah, so not lunging forward with the torso or hinging forward. The leg, the back leg is on a diagonal, but the torso is vertical. Trying to get into your psoas a little bit, kind of an active engagement and stretch. 2 more. And last one. And then return. Bring your leg back down onto the carriage. Whichever foot was forward, that same rail, you're gonna put both hands on that rail. Once both hands are kind of where your foot was, you're gonna side bend to pull the carriage forward, come back to the center to return. So you're side bending and returning the carriage. Now the movement's coming from the waist, so it's like you're trying to curve into lateral flexion to pull the carriage forward. Yeah, good. Keep the hips in the middle and think of, instead of the hips swinging to the side to do this, that it's kind of like the shoulders and the head move to do this. Pull and return and side bend and center. And 3 more. When you're done with this last one, stay in that side bend with the carriage away from the stopper and just do a little pulse into the waist. Side bend a little more, side bend a little more, a little pulse. And 4, 3, 2, and 1. Return the carriage, sit back towards your heels, and then come back up to kneeling and reach the other foot forward on the second rail. Back your standing knee up enough that your femur can be on a diagonal. Torso is vertical. Pull the knee underneath you. If you smash right into the heel, then move your foot forward a little bit. And you're pulling your knee underneath you. You're trying to get your torso to come up to vertical. Feeling that connection from the inside part of the groin and leg all the way up into the back of your bottom ribs, so that you feel like you're deepening your abdominal connection in order to make this happen. So Ginge, see if you can make the back femur, the back angle of the back hip change, instead of the back leg stays the same and it's the front knee that's changing. So start with just staying in the center, don't rotate. Figure out the hip, and then we go from there. Reach your arms out to the side, add your rotation towards the front leg, and return, and rotate, and return. Good. Nice carry. Keep pulling up through the waist. 3 more. And then bring the carriage back in. Bring your hands down to the rail, pretty much where your foot was. Find a side bend, then increase your side bend to pull the carriage forward and return. Now the movement's coming from our torso. The legs are kind of going along for the ride. Side bend, bring your shoulder to the hip on the same side. Use your breath to help you. As long as you're breathing, I'm happy. Last 2 here. And hold the last one, and little pulse into that side bend more. Deep in the side bend. Should feel like your obliques are working. Side bend, side bend. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Return the carriage. Sit back towards your heels, stretch back. And then we're gonna turn to face the side. We're gonna put our forearm on the platform. Probably a half spring will work. If you find a carriage moving around a lot, you're welcome to make it heavier to help support you more. So your forearms on the platform, either reach the top leg out or lift the hips up and reach the top leg out. Your choice. So starting with just a little bit of a circle, totally fine to circle with the hip down. You want this not to be moving around on you a lot, so keep the carriage still, which lighter is harder in the sense that you have to control that bottom arm and carriage more. Yeah. And then reverse your circles. Try to point your knee and your toe down just enough that you feel glute medius, back of the hip, doing something back there, something good. And then bring your leg in, lower your hips down if they're up. And then either keep the hips down or press them up again. Reach the top leg out, pull the knee in, kick it back out towards the back of pulleys. Push, pull. So instead of bringing your foot back towards your butt, try to bring your leg forward in front of you so it's more like you're coming to tabletop than leaving your leg in line with the torso. In front of you is going to be harder, more to stabilize. Yeah, awesome, everyone. Good, Dana. Pull in, press out. 2 more, pull in, press and pull in, and press. When you're done with that last one, set your hips down, bring yourself up. Find a place where you could take your hands off and you won't tip over. If my legs are too far away, I can't stay up. So find the balance point first. grab the shoulder rest, side bend towards the back of the reformer. Set your hand down on the platform. The other hand's gonna come to the front corner of the carriage, and then just push the platform out so you lengthen out into one long line. Then as you come back in, let it shove you up and over, the beginning of the shove. And lengthen, kind of flatten out, push through the shoulder, push through the arm, side bend up and over. Rotate your shoulders a little towards the floor as you press out. Bring them back towards the front and side bend towards the pulleys. One more time. Pushing out and side bend. And then go to that place where your hand's on the front of the carriage. You've pushed the carriage out. Make sure you're in control. You can always adjust springs. Bring the other hand to the top of the platform and try to square your shoulders to the floor. Bring the carriage in and then press the carriage back out. You've done this more or less with the Z-sit and the normal version of mermaid. The difference here is it just feels like it opens up a different part of the back because you're not up on the foot bar and your legs are oriented differently. Just a nice little extension moment where you get a little bit of spring tension to push you into that extension. Yeah, awesome, everyone. And last one. And then bring the carriage back in. Turn to face the back of the reformer and grab the strap that's on the same side that you were facing. Cool. So either legs crossed or next to each other, hands distance behind you. You can sit on the platform if you need. Take one hand has no strap, one hand has a strap. Round back through your lower back, pulling the arm in. Drop the elbows and then just do a little bicep curl here. Feel like your focus is on the connection of the abdominals. You can leave the arm that doesn't have any resistance in it still, or you can move them both, whatever feels more natural to you. Yeah, keep rounding the pelvis under, keep scooping, hollowing out through the abdomen so you're not just hanging there from your hip flexors, you're scooping from the abdominals. And then bring your arms into your chest, flex forward over your legs, and stack back up. So then, keeping that same orientation of the arms, pull your arms into your chest and round back, elbows kind of wide. Rotate away from the side with the strap. So rotate away, come back to the center. You're rotating away and back to the center. And rotate away. And then reach the free arm forward. And as you rotate, reach it out on that long diagonal. Rotate and center. And rotate. Should mostly feel like abdominal work. If you don't feel any abdominal work, you're just kind of sitting there comfortably. Try to get the pelvis again to spin underneath. I know that's so hard to do, but we're working on that in lots of exercises because it is difficult. Hold out there and see if you can do a little bicep curl of the strap arm. While you hold that rotation, 4, 3, 2, pulling in the abs. And last one, come back to the center and come forward over the legs and sit back up tall. If you want to sit cross-legged, you can now. Reach your arms out like airplane and press the arms out away from the center. Again, you can do both arms or one, whichever feels more natural to you. Keeping your rib cage and shoulders square to the front. Trying to feel that connection into the back of the shoulders. See if you can keep from leaning backwards. Yeah, press your arm back and then let it go down to go forward and around. So it's making kind of a circle, kind of an oval, kind of a teardrop, something like that. Exactly. Press out, down and around. Out, down and around. Reverse those circles. Circling around, down, like plow, out towards horizontal and around. Down and around. Awesome. One more time. And then return. Keep this same strap, but scoot really far forward until your butt is up against the shoulder rest and you can lay down. If you have long hair, just make sure you gather your hair in your hand as you lay down. Pretty much all of us should fit here. With your butt touching the shoulder rest, see if you can lift both legs to tabletop and just do a bicep curl here. We were starting to work on this. The goal is to stay straight. It's not the hardest bicep curl you've ever done, but it's just the beginning. Good. And then take and bicep curl, reach the arm out overhead, circle the arm to the side to return. If you can, keep everything in the center. Try not to get pulled off to the side. And pull in, reach out overhead, circle around. Bicep curl, reach overhead, circle around. 2 more. And last one. And then return. You can reach the shoulder rest, put the strap on the shoulder rest. Carefully, mindfully sit back up or roll to the side to come off of there. And we're going to do all this on the other side. So we're going to start with the forearm on the platform. So facing the second side, forearm on the platform, hips can be up or hips can be down. Stabilize that standing shoulder, reach your top leg out and circle your leg around. As you're circling your leg, trying to keep the carriage still. It might not be all the way against the stopper, that's okay. As long as it doesn't keep drifting further and further and further. And reverse your circles. As you're circling, keep really long through the torso. Yeah, awesome. And last 2. Last one. And then either with the hips staying down or the hips up, hover the pelvis, bring the leg forward like tabletop in front of you, press it back out. Bring it forward, press it back out. Even with the hips down on this light spring tension, it should feel like you're doing some work through that standing shoulder, lat, oblique, to be able to keep the carriage from moving all over the place. Bend the leg in front of you, kick the leg out. Bend it, push the heel towards the pulleys. Bend it in, push towards the pulleys. 3 more. And last one. And then bring your leg back in. Sit up a little bit so that you're balanced. Your knees can still be kind of stacked on top of each other, but you want to be able to balance without holding on. Side bend towards the shoulder rest, pulling against the shoulder rest to side bend. Then put your hand down on the platform, the other hand on the front of the carriage, push out, and then come back in, reach towards the shoulder rest, side bend up and over towards the shoulder rest. Hand goes on the platform, trying to smooth it out here, making it as much one continuous movement as you can. Pushing the carriage out, kind of square your shoulders to the floor, pull yourself back in, and side bend up and over, and press out, and pull it in, and side bend up and over. 1 more time. Press out, square your shoulders as much as you can, pull it in, and side bend. You're gonna push out with one hand, put the other hand either on the front of the carriage or the platform, and push out. As you pull back in, lift your sternum, lift your chest. We're in this big spiral. As you pull in, try to open up across the front of the heart. The other side felt, to me, pretty manageable. This side, I feel like a lot more tightness in my rotation, and I think that there's just You know, it's good to notice these areas or islands of compression in the body and try to use the breath to kind of move through them. And come all the way back in. Awesome. Turn towards the back of the reformer. Find your strap that's on the same side you were facing a minute ago. Legs through the shoulder rests. Make sure there's a little space behind you. Start by one arm holding the strap, rounding back and in. Drop the elbows, and then just a bicep curl. So try to round back. You should feel like you're shortening the distance between your ribs and your hips, and that you're not just leaning back from your hip flexors. Yeah, just stay in that shape and bicep curl a few times. Nice. The emphasis is in the roundness through the lower back. Good. Should feel like your abdominals are holding you there. One more time. And then come forward over the legs. And round back again, pulling the arms into the chest, and just rotate your upper body towards the side with no strap. And then come back to the center. Rotate, center, rotate, center. If you'd like, reach the free arm forward and rotate, using the arm to create a little more leverage, a little more challenge. Most of the work should be in the abdominals. Dana, see if you can keep from going down. So really your torso doesn't move, it's just rotating. So you're not going up and down. Yeah, that's better. Stay out there, hold, and then bicep curl with the strap arm. So you'll have to drop the elbow to point it down and bend and straighten. It should all be abs. Either you're the strongest person I've met if you feel no abs, or you're not actually in your abs and you're just hanging off your hip flexors. So round your lower back more if you can. Nice early. Last one. Come back forward over the center and sit back up tall. You can sit cross-legged if you'd prefer. Reach your arm out to the side like airplane and press the arm back as close to shoulder height as you can, trying to engage through the shoulders. Press and return and press. Good. And Grace, see if you can turn your palm to face forward. In general, I like you that direction because it helps get you more in the back of the shoulder. And then start to take this into a little bit of a circle. So your arms press back, you lower the arms to circle it around. Stay within the tension, meaning don't let the reformer kind of crash in. Pick a range of motion that you can keep tension through it. So if you feel a lot of tension in your neck, in general, one of the things we can do is strengthen the middle and lower traps to try to balance some of that out. Unless the reason the tension is there is because the shoulders are really depressed, which that's a slightly different problem. Feel free to take a break at any point, reverse the direction of the circles, around and around. Good. Last 3, 2, and last one. Good. And then be mindful as you scoot your bum closer to the shoulder rests, and then figure out how to lay down, lifting your legs to tabletop, hand holding your hair if it's long, and hand behind the head. Bicep curl here, using the abdominals to keep the torso centered. If it's too much, there is the shoulder rest, the head rest that you could put your feet on, but I think all of you can manage the legs in the air. Yeah, good. And then add that press overhead. So you bicep curl, you press overhead, the arm sweeps towards the side, out and around. As the arm goes to the side, the more it goes to the side, the harder it is for the abdominals to stabilize. Good. Bicep curl, press out overhead, sweep the arm to the side. Bicep curl, press overhead, sweep the arm to the side. Good. 2 more. And last one. And come all the way off of here. You might be able to put the strap on the shoulder rest and then kind of roll to your side, whatever makes sense to you. And then we're gonna come to kneeling. So let's switch to the quarter spring if you have a quarter spring. It's pretty light. So make sure you put your hand and knee on the platform side that doesn't move, and then put your hand and knee on the carriage side. So you're in one long line, and then just feel how light it is by pressing the carriage out and round your back under and pull it back in. Yeah, lengthen your spine to neutral, push the carriage out, big stretch, and then round into your cat back to pull it back in. Doesn't feel hard, should just feel kind of nice or like a stretch. Pulling in and pressing out and round and pull in. And one more time, pressing out and bring it almost all the way into the stopper, or push it out away from the stopper a little bit. Find the center of your weight. So you're not forward, you're not back. Your hands are under your shoulders. So you're not just like, say, an inch off the stopper. You're however wide you need to be, reasonably under the hips and under the shoulders for your body. Keep your weight centered between upper and lower body, and take one arm and reach it forward. Set that hand back down. Take the other arm and reach it forward and set it back down. And you feel a lot of internal negotiation happening here that are working to keep things stable. So you're alternating between hands. You're trying to make it so that I couldn't really see which arm you were moving if I couldn't see your arm. Lengthen your back to neutral, everybody. Flatten your back more. Yes. And then if it feels easy, you're probably sitting back a bit. So shift your weight forward so you have weight over your arms at the same time you're taking it off. Yeah. Okay, good. So that seems pretty reasonable. Now you're going to do the same thing, trying to move the leg. I know some of you are in small spaces. I don't care if your foot goes to the ground, if it goes straight out behind you. It depends on how much room you have. I care about the balance part. So you're trying to release one leg and reach it into the space you have. Yes, ideally you'd reach it all the way out to straight behind you. But if you kick a wall before that happens, then reach towards the ground more. Yeah, awesome. And even with this quarter spring, you feel it kind of shoving you around. In some ways it'd be harder if it was a half spring, in other ways it'd be easier. So feel free to play with the spring tension. You guys are smart and probably know what's going to be next, which is trying to do opposite arm and leg. So you're trying to stay neutral and reach the arm and leg out, bring the arm and leg back down. Nobody has to add the opposite arm and leg. You could stick with a previous version. It's usually harder the moment you're trying to get the leg that's on the platform to leave, for most of us. Awesome. Like a few more, a couple more. Keep lengthening through the spine. Find your center, reaching out. Today is the day we find challenge with light springs. One more time. And come all the way back in. Step off the back so you can switch which spring you have by tipping the platform. Go to one red spring and then put the platform back, still facing the same direction. It's heavier now, so the carriage shouldn't go flying as you put your hands and knees both on the carriage. And you might need to move a little bit closer to the shoulder rest. You're gonna put your foot on the edge of the platform and press out through your arm and leg. I'm wearing slippery pants, so I'm putting my knee against the shoulder rest. And then bend the leg and come back in. I don't care if it comes all the way back in. It's more about this pushing out part. Press out and kind of sweep your arms to the side to push it out further. Think of your arms like going towards the back of the reformer. Yeah, push out, sweep into a side split, pull back in. push out, sweep, and in. One more time, nice, Joanna. And come all the way back in. Crawl a little bit forward and stand up on your knees. Grab the strap that's closer to the shoulder rest that you're near. This is one red spring. We're not going to do 1,000, but internal rotation is option one, where you're rotating your arm in this direction, or adduction, coming across. Usually these you can do heavier. So if you can't do either of them, then definitely you have to lighten the springs, but we're not going to do 1,000,000. Across, return, 4, 3, 2, yeah, nice everyone. And last one. And put the strap back, side bend towards that shoulder rest, and reach your free arm up and over your head. And then just take your arm up to the ceiling, side bend a little more. Reach up to the ceiling, side bend more. Are we moving very much? No. We're just trying to find this kind of strange position where you're trying to push your hips forward. Should feel like the obliques on the outside are holding you up, not just you leaning into your hand. Lift up the arm, side bend a little, lift up one more time, and then come all the way back up. And we're going to turn around to do all of this on the other side. So you'll come off of your reformer and switch to your quarter spring. You guys are going to face your second side. I'm going to face the same side so I can see you. So make sure you place your hand and your knee on the platform. Hand and knee on the carriage. Second, it's light. Push out, stretching your inner thighs open, and then rounding your back up towards the ceiling in your cat stretch. Pushing out, lengthening through the spine. Early, that's good. That's the one we did at the end. The one we did at the beginning of this little series is both knees down, but you can do that one too. They have this similar effect. Yeah. Rounding. Awesome, Grace. One more time. Push out away from the stopper enough that you feel a little bit more underneath your shoulders and hips. And without shifting your weight back, release one hand and set it back down. Keep your weight forward as you release the second hand, alternating between arms. Stick your butt out a little, Dana, so you're a little more neutral. You might crawl your knees back further towards the back edge of the platform too. Yeah, exactly. Long through the torso. And then reaching your legs out behind you. Reach one leg out. Bring it back in and down. Yeah. And reach a leg out. Find that internal connection that has to happen to help you stabilize. If it's not working at all, feel free to play around with the springs or just do this with the carriage all the way in against the stopper and just move your body a little closer to the foot bar direction. Exactly. Good. And if you did it on the other side and you're ready to give it a shot, opposite arm and leg. Finding your balance, bringing it in. Finding your balance. Awesome. Good. Carriage keeps wanting to come in on you. You're going to try to not let it. Like one more on each side. Excellent. And then stand up so you can tip the platform and switch to one red spring. Put both hands and knees on the carriage, foot against the platform, sweeping out to the side and bending it back in. It should feel like you're pushing with your leg that's on the carriage just as much as you're pushing with your other leg. So you're creating opposition. You're not just passively stretching here. Sweeping out twice more. Good. And last one, when you're done with this one, you'll be kneeling or come up to kneeling, grab the strap that's closer to the shoulder rest in front of you, and either internal rotation or sweeping the arm across the abdomen, adduction. Both of these are for our rotator cuff, so you're trying to find some of those deeper muscles in the back of the shoulder, kind of strange movements to find these little tiny muscles back there. 4, 2, last one. And then put the strap down, side bend towards the shoulder rest, reach your arm up and overhead and side bend as much as you possibly can. Lift the arm, it takes a little tensioning off that side bend, and side bend further and reach your arm up to the ceiling. We'll add the strap at some point to the top arm, but just trying to work on being in this position, trying to get both hips forward, open across the front of the hips so you're not in a flexed hip position. And one more time, side bend, and then use your abdominals to come all the way back up. Awesome. Come off of there, and you can take your platform off just so it's easier to adjust the springs. Let's start with a half spring and see how that works. Stand in front of the shoulder rest, holding onto the strap that's on the side you're on. Reaching your arms forward, bend your knees, and see if you can do a little rotation. And it feels like I run out of room. So if I feel like I can't go in the full range, then I move a little bit towards the foot bar. If it's too heavy, you always can go to your quarter spring. Bend your knees enough that you're in kind of a mini squat position. You feel like an athletic stance. Two more. And then step back towards the back of the reformer. Whichever leg is further away from the rail of the reformer, that's going to be front. The one that's on the side you're moving is going to be in a lunge. Back heel is lifted. You can back up as far as you need to, but press your arm overhead and then bend your elbow to the side. So I'm going to come closer to the camera so I can show you my elbow, but you're trying to take your arm out to the side and reach forward. So this motion, you're going into more upward rotation and downward versus it being a tricep press or some other movement. Trying to keep that big lunge. Nice. Front leg is quite bent. If you're on a low reformer, you might, it might need to change the resistance a little bit, but you decide. And now rotate and look away from it as you push it out and come back to the center. Rotate and center and rotate and center and 4. Balance is definitely part of it. One last time. And then return, bring your arm down along your side, step forward, that same lunge you were in a minute ago, but further forward. And then just try to bicep curl here. If you can't move at all, back up a little and see if it lightens it up enough you can move. Bicep curl, return. So square your shoulders, ribs, hips to the foot bar direction of the reformer, the front of the reformer, and try to move from the arm just bending at the elbow. Yeah, nice carry. Good. See if you can keep your hips from being back in your lunge. That takes the work out of the glutes. Push the hips forward. Yeah, last one. And then put the strap back on that shoulder rest. You may need to stand on your platform if you're on a high reformer and you're not a very tall person. I'm going to. You're on a low reformer, you probably won't need to. But start where your knees are about in line with each other, with the carriage leg against the shoulder rest. Yeah, bend your standing leg, push the carriage out and hinge the torso forward so you create one long line, and then bend and come back in. You can add arms to this, pushing out, pulling in. You hit the stopper at some point when you come in, so if you want to back up more, it tends to be a little bit more difficult because you don't hit the stopper as quickly. Push, pull. Bending the standing leg, straighten the standing leg. Bend the standing leg, straighten the standing leg. So the knee is not on the carriage, and it shouldn't feel like you go down into the carriage and then come back up out of it. You're teeter-tottering more. Yeah, that's better. Try not to just let the carriage shove you in, but you pull yourself back in from that standing hip, teeter-totter forward, come in. Because it's light, it should feel like at the exact same time your front leg is bending, the back leg can be straightening. It's not wrong, but some of you are doing it where you bend the standing leg, you go down into the carriage, then you're hinging forward. It's just different. I feel like you can be more simultaneous with the legs because it's light. Hold that position wherever you are out and just pump the back leg, kind of kiss the knee to the carriage. Lots of work in the standing hip. And 4, 3. Last one. Bring the carriage all the way back in, stand up and walk around to the other side. Set the platform wherever you can get it, but you don't want it right at the very beginning because we're going to start with rotation. So you're holding the strap, you're standing somewhere in front of the shoulder rest. Reach both arms out in front of you, slight bend in the knees, rotating through the torso, coming back to the center. Adjust if you need to create the right amount of reach and length. Really clasp the hands together, they're helping you. There's definitely some work in the arms. This isn't like when we do it kneeling, where I say, you know, don't let the arms help at all. This, they have to. Two more. And last one. And return. Good. Back up towards the back of the reformer. The inside leg lunges back. Outside leg reaches into that lunge. And you're going to press your arm up and into that kind of upward row situation. Bend and press. Yeah, try not to be vertical through the torso. See if you can be on an incline. It's a little bit like your salute tricep press, but it's the elbow and the shoulder contributing to the motion. If you're on a low reformer and you feel like you can hardly move the carriage, I think switch to the lighter spring. Or you have to get down lower, because those are the only two ways to make the rope longer, which is kind of what I think you need. Try to back up a little, Dana, and see if that helps at all. That looks more reasonable, manageable. Yeah. And then add that little rotation where you look away from it and you look away and you center off and you look away and you center off. Feel that front glute working the whole time. Is this easy? No, this isn't the easiest arm exercise I've ever had you guys do, but we're always kind of oscillating between those foundational exercises and adding more challenge. One more time. Bring it back in. Take your arm down by your side, walk forward, find that lunge again, and find your bicep curl. If you decided to be too far forward, then back up and adjust until you find a place where you can move. Yeah, back heel is lifted, you're in a lunge. I feel as much glute in the front leg as I do work in my shoulder and arm. So there should be something going on in there. 2 more. And last one. And then you can put the strap back, put your platform down. The kind of easiest way to start would be to have your knees in line with each other and decide if that's about right. And push out, bending the front knee, simultaneously straightening the back leg, développé. One leg is doing one thing, the other is doing the opposite, or a kind of bicycling feeling. Pull all the way up to vertical through the pelvis to stand, so you don't end up standing with flex tips. Push out, hinge, and come back up from that standing glute. Standing glute elevates you up, it pulls you up like an elevator, lifting you back to vertical. You can add some arms. You could keep your arms on your hips, whatever works for you today. Yeah, awesome. Make sure that back leg bending and straightening. It's not just staying in the same shape and kind of moving at the hip joint. The hip and the knee of both legs are changing. Hip and knee, and in. Hip and knee, and in. And 3, 2. Last one, hold it out there. Pumping the back leg, the knee kisses the carriage. Holding from that front hip. Last 4, 3, 2, and last 1. Bring the carriage all the way back in. Step off of there. Bring your foot bar back up. Put enough springs on that the carriage won't move for your body weight. So just a couple of reds will do that for you. And then put the platform over the springs. It doesn't have to be against the wood for this. So if you don't have room, feel free to adjust. But sitting here, I'm kind of halfway on the carriage and halfway on the platform because I know what's going to happen next. But you decide. Probably don't have a gap between the carriage and the platform or you'll be in the gap. Okay, so the carriage shouldn't move if you wiggle, right? Okay, reach your arms forward, round back until you hit kind of mid-thoracic, and I'm feeling I want it to hit me a little higher on my back, so I scooch my butt forward. Then reach the arms overhead, circle the arms around, and sit back up. You could do this with the hands behind the head as well. That feels better to you. I just want this big extension where you get a little support in the extension and rounding back. You guys that know the arc barrel work, the barrels, this kind of feels familiar from that stuff. And reverse the direction of your circles. If your feet don't touch the ground, you could either put something under them or you can bring your feet up onto the carriage as long as the carriage doesn't move around on you. Reverse the arms at some point. Find kind of that nice middle of the thoracic. It's above the bra strap area against the bar to kind of support you in extension. One more time like that. You're going to stay back in that extension if you can. Hold the extension. If you feel anything in your neck, put your hands behind your head. You could release one arm at a time and just kind of pulse the armpit open, or you can just hang out there. If you're doing one arm, reach the other arm overhead, find a little pulse opening through the armpit, both hands back behind the head, and then use your arms and legs to come back up. Awesome. It'd be good to do a single thigh stretch before you are done completely. Otherwise, you're done. Thank you so much for coming. Nice to see all of you.